Welcome everybody to Art Conversations. Again, here we are, and it's a treat to be with Bethan Venn, our friend, who is an artist. And Bethan, just tell us a bit about yourself. What do you do? Where are you sat right now? This looks intriguing. What's going on?
It is intriguing. I am in a gallery in Shaftesbury, Dorset. So this is Shaftesbury Art Centre. It's a community gallery. It's run by an organisation that's very community focused, and they like to support local artists.
Yeah.
So yeah, I signed up for that. It's a 2-year waiting list. So you have 2 years to prepare for your exhibition.
And so this is your artwork on the wall behind you?
Yeah, so this exhibition is 3 friends.
Yeah.
We're all sharing the space together. Our work complements each other. And the work on the wall is mine. So I've got a third of the gallery space. So I've got paintings, and then I convert a lot of my paintings into pattern repeats or surface pattern designs for other products.
Oh wow.
Okay.
So one of my favorite things to do is to create wearable art, so scarves, fabric, or you can have it on wallpaper, or products like makeup bags, face masks. That's a winner. Sadly, at the moment, face masks are very popular.
Wow, I love it. Let's put our order in.
Yeah, well, I had a lady come into the gallery today who bought a stack of them, so she had a different mask to go with different outfits for work every day.
Wow.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Every cloud?
Yeah, I know. Well, with the face masks, because my work, one of the things people say when they see my work is usually, oh, it makes me happy, or it makes me feel joyful or peaceful or whatever.
Yeah.
And when this horrific pandemic kind of unfolded and it became apparent that face masks were going to be a thing for the future, I thought, I don't like masks, and I don't like the fact that you sort of block the communication.
Yeah.
And we wear the masks because we're afraid, and we don't want to catch germs, and we don't want to spread germs. So there's this whole thing of fear and limiting contact with each other. And I thought, if my work brings people joy and makes them happy, then I'd like to not combat, but put a positive spin on the whole mask thing. Wow. So that people can then feel like, actually, I'm making the best out of a bad situation, really.
Oh, that's so cool.
Great.
Yeah, a lot of my work has names like abundant life or abundant peace, or I don't know, names that are positive and affirming. And so I wanted to come against this whole spirit of fear and this whole atmosphere of fear, and make it a positive experience for people.
So
wow,
good.
that's so cool. I didn't know that you did that with the masks. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
I would love to press in a minute to sort of talking a little bit about the names and how you kind of get inspiration for your bits of art, and how you do you know what I mean, how you name it and things. I think before that, it'd be really good to just hear a little bit about how you've even journeyed to get to the place that you are now. I know you run Colourpop business alongside other businesses that you're doing, but I'm just kind of interested, what made you get to a point where you were sort of doing art like this? Like, do you know what I mean? Where did it come from? Where did it spring from?
Well, I'm one of those people that always wanted to have a business right from when they were little. I always saw myself running my own business. Yeah. And I've always been incredibly expressive with colour and texture, and I was one of those kids who didn't just draw a flower in the garden. They drew the flower, and then I drew the leaves and the veins on the leaves and the roots in the soil, which you can't actually see. And so I think I just always had this real desire to express myself with colour. It's my language, really. And when my kids got a bit older, I've got 2 teenagers, when they got older, I realised that actually there's a part of me that I hadn't been expressing for a really long time. Wow. And it needed to come out. Wow. And I used to make the most elaborate birthday cakes. That was my creative expression. So I would make birthday cakes 3 or 4 times a year, and that literally was all I did. But there was so much inside of me that really just needed to come out. And I started to realise that I was actually a bit depressed because I'd stopped this expression, and it was so important for me to get it out. Yeah. I think it's the same for everybody, but everybody will have a different way of expressing their creativity. So I had a moment when I was approaching 40, which helped me to bring things into perspective, and I realised I can either get old and wait until I retire and do this stuff, and be grumpy and grouchy and, you know, frustrated because I'm not expressing myself, or I can just go for it. I did go to art college. I did prop making for theatre and film, which I don't use. I don't use that qualification or those skills. And then I went back to college or university, did an online course when I turned 40. And then I realised whilst I was doing the course that actually I didn't need the qualification, because my creativity and my expression was just an overflow of who I am. So I didn't need the debt and the and the deadlines because as I started to express myself and I got more opportunities to get involved with things, that they presented deadlines of their own. So if you're invited to put work in a gallery or be part of an exhibition, you have something to work towards, which makes sure that you've got that momentum. So yeah, I've been incredibly fortunate. I think I have very
brave by the sounds of it.
Well, very, very brave. And that's why we call this exhibition, or this group of us ladies, Creative and Brave, is because there is a lot of courage involved in expressing yourself creatively, because it's such an important part of who you are and it's so personal to you. It's a bit like, I don't know if you've ever had those dreams where you're talking to a whole group of people and then suddenly you realise you're not wearing enough clothes, or you haven't got
I hate that dream.
haven't got the right clothes on, or you think, oh, I haven't even put my shoes on. I'm out in this dream and I haven't got my shoes on. And and that's what it's like when you're.
I haven't got my pants on.
I haven't got my pants on. Oh,
not right now.
That's normally what it is.
These Zoom calls, you can get away with anything.
That's right.
So it feels like that when you're being creative. In this sort of environment, or I do a lot of painting live in front of people. People make judgments all the time and they don't even realize they're doing it. And sometimes you can feel people making judgments around you.
Wow.
When you're being creative, and if you've got any insecurity or fear inside you, you respond to that, and it can either shut you down or you can make the decision to press on regardless, which is what I've learned to do, because I now realize that if I don't express myself creatively, then I'm not the whole me. And I believe that you only get one shot at life. So I want to be all of me, and I know that by being all of me, that encourages other people around me to be more of them. And I need that in my life, and they need me being me and being happy. So I can't even remember what the question was.
I can't either, but I'm loving where we're going.
I'm glad where we ended up. Who cares?
Oh, so good.
I want to just pick up briefly, actually, Bethan, on the whole thing of, because you do paint live in front of people, and it must be quite a vulnerable place to be, in vulnerable place to do that. But in terms of when you can feel people may be judging you, or at least judging the work you're creating, how do you pass that out between what you think they're thinking, or what they are actually maybe thinking? Like, how much of that is you, how much of that is them, and then what do you do with that? You said you sort of have to push on through, but how do you do that and stay sweet?
Well, I probably don't always stay sweet, but I try my best. It's a learning curve.
Yeah.
I think I just had to make a decision to push on through.
Yeah.
For a start. I know that people make judgments because I make judgments, and so I can, whatever situation you go into, you've usually judged it within the first few seconds. So I know that people will make a judgment, and it will be a good or a bad judgment about my expression. And because most of what I do in a live setting is abstract, and I'm usually responding to something in that setting, people won't see the whole picture. They literally won't see the whole picture. So they'll see different stages, and some pictures can take hours or days to create, and some are finished in an hour. So for some people, they'll make a judgment on just the lines or the marks that they see, and other people will look at it and think, oh, it doesn't look like anything. I don't have a grid of reference for it because it doesn't look realistic.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's worth anything.
Yeah.
And then other people will watch what I'm doing, and they just are really engaged in the watching and the process of creating.
Yeah.
And they don't care really what I'm making.
Yeah.
They're just enjoying watching me enjoying myself.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
So
with that, because obviously we're all in the same church together. We know you produce art during times of worship, and when we're singing, or when people are playing musical worship, and you do that. And could you just speak into a little bit that interface, that crossover, where you're producing art, but in a sense as a form of worship? And what's that conversation going on between you and God, you and in that moment,
And just to add to that also, what are you picking up in the room? Do you find that you have connection with musicians in that moment? Is there like something that you're picking up in the room that you're doing, or are you in your own thing? Do you find it's corporate or sort of personal as well? Just to add.
Those are both really massive questions. We could be here all day. I don't respond to particular musicians as in I don't have a connection with a named person.
Yes.
But rhythm is really important for me when I'm painting.
Really?
So I respond to the tone or the rhythm of the song often with my mark making, particularly when I'm first putting down the marks on a canvas. Sorry, I'm waving my hands, and I can see that that's probably quite distracting. So I'm just doing what I'd be doing while I'm painting. So when I'm making the marks, I'm often responding more to the tonal rhythm or sometimes the melody, but it's usually the rhythm. And then when I start to think about the colours, sometimes in my mind or my imagination, I can see colours in the room as the music changes or progresses. And sometimes, well, in the past I have learnt about colour therapy and things like that, and I've also learnt about colours in the Bible, and I've learnt about people connecting colours to themes, which is often a thing that is used in prophetic art. And they're all valid, all of those things are valid, but what I've found is that colours are personal to me. So there might be sounds or a sense in the room which to me feels like a dark blue or a turquoise or an orange. And I often don't know what colours to use until the music starts and I'm responding to the sound that's being created in the room. Or other times I can be praying on my way to church or an event, and God will very specifically give me colours to use, and I can almost see them flashing up in front of my eyes.
Wow.
And I never necessarily, well, it's not that I never, but I often significance of those colours until I have a conversation with somebody behind me who's been sitting behind me later in the day, and they say, oh, those colours, they mean this, this and this to me.
Wow.
And I find then that what I've painted wasn't for my benefit.
Wow.
Wow.
It was actually to benefit the people behind me who've also been responding to what God was doing in the worship time.
Yeah.
And what I was creating was prompting them or helping them to feel something that they may or may not have felt if they didn't have that visual thing to focus on. But some people need a visual thing to focus on in order to be able to be fully aware or in the situation that they're in. Like I can't watch a film if I'm not doing something with my hands. I have to be crocheting or stitching, or because I can't focus on concentrating if my hands aren't busy.
Yeah.
So, and there are some people who can't focus on listening if they're not watching something. So
Yeah.
I think painting in that setting is quite useful for some people.
Yeah, definitely.
Although it could be drawing or dancing or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. So you've kind of talked a little bit about, there's almost two forms, aren't there? There's this sort of almost like spontaneous painting. And I'm just interested, and you've kind of touched on how you prepare for that spontaneity. And it's obviously there's that vulnerability there as well. And then you have this other form of painting, which I'm assuming is you at home in a studio, or it might be a piece of art that you're working on over weeks and months. Or do you find that there's a connection between those two things, or do you feel like they're quite separate? Does one feed into the other? Like, how do they help one another? Do you see what I mean?
Yeah. I do a lot of practicing, as in I draw a lot.
Right.
I play a lot. I'd like to play more, actually, because a lot of what I discover when I'm playing, I then use in my actual practice of painting.
Yeah.
I think playing is so important. Just like a musician would practice scales, I have to practice drawing.
Yeah. So what does that look like for you? What does it look like when you say, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to play now? What does that look like?
So it could be anything from sitting in the garden and drawing flowers, or drawing seeds, or snail shells, or anything.
Yeah.
Or excuse me, or fruit. I know this might sound really peculiar to a non-visual person, but I love the detail in, like, if you cut open a cucumber or a melon and you see how the seeds are spread out inside it, every single slice is going to be different. And so I like to really take time to look in detail if I'm drawing. So I'll have, I don't know, some fruit to draw from, or I might get a pineapple, draw the outside, like all the little shapes on the side, and then chop it up into slices and draw different bits of the patterns inside. And then essentially I'm putting all of that information into my memory bank, so that then when I come to draw, put my marks down, my abstract marks on a painting, it's not actually abstract because I've already practiced it and it's stored in here. Or the drawing could be just playing with different materials, and I like to do things like draw with the wrong hand, or draw with my eyes closed,
Yeah.
or have a selection of peculiar things like a fork or a comb or a bit of sponge or a leaf, and just practice making marks with different things to see what textures they make.
Do you think that you know, like when you're doing, you talk about this pattern making that you're doing with your art, and I've seen some of your things and they're amazing. Do you feel like, is it mainly sort of natural things that you're inspired by? Like, what is it that inspires those patterns? Is it the seeds in the cucumber? Is it, do you have something in your head in that moment? Do you kind of go, oh, there was something about the way that was laid out that I just want to, do you know what I mean? And that becomes the starting point for your patterns, or is it something else?
And also, does making a salad take ages?
It can do, it really can. And sometimes I have to keep some bits, keep them to the side so that I can draw them later.
Those ones are too pretty to eat.
Yeah, I've got to draw them. Don't touch that, I need to draw it before you eat it. You know, on my phone, I have 3,500 photos on my phone. Part of my admin today has been sorting out my photographs. I have got some photos of my children, but it's mostly photos of things like peeling paint on scaffolding poles, peeling paint on wooden surfaces that are really weathered, things like lichen or lichen, however you want to say it, on old gnarled trees, sand on a beach, and I've got loads and loads of pictures of flowers and leaves, and it's all, you know, that's all my collecting of information into my memory bank so that I can pull on it later.
Good.
So yeah, I can't remember what your question was now.
I guess it was just, is it sort of the natural world that inspires you? Are there, or it could be could it be anything? How does that inspiration drop? What makes you kind of go, oh, that would just make an amazing pattern? And do you approach it that way, or do you just play in something forms?
A bit of both, really. I'm always fascinated by nature and natural forms, and it's usually small things that really capture me, and things that I feel like they're things that other people would miss. But I was always that child that would wander on behind when everyone else is in a rush, because I'm just fascinated by the wonder of, like, if you look in a hedgerow and it all looks green if you stand back, but then if you move forward, there are some stalks that are purple, and then there might be a little flower that's gone a bit crispy and it's actually brown, and then there's a red leaf, but you don't notice it if you're in a hurry and you're walking by really fast or driving by. But I'm the one that will stop and prod about and have a real close look. So it's mostly nature, to go back to your question, but architecture can also spark things in my imagination too. So patterns and things, layers of buildings. So recently I had the opportunity to go to Paris with my daughter, and we took loads of photos of architecture, and I absolutely loved it. Because French architecture has a flavour to it, doesn't it, that's different to English. So I was able to really be inspired by their shapes, and I really love travelling and seeing all the different things that make a culture, like the food and the way it's laid out on a plate, and how the colours go together, and how that works with the smells of the things that they use, and the patterns on their fabrics, and the way they weave their local baskets or whatever it is that they make or produce in that part of the world. All of that. I'm just fascinated by life generally.
In a way, that kind of comes back to that thing of you saying we need to be fully ourselves, because if those cultures lose this is the way we weave our baskets, something's lost, isn't it? So that's amazing, isn't it? I love that.
Yeah.
So good.
If you, I'm just thinking that if your family can't find you, you're probably off making a salad somewhere, or you're under a bush.
Drawing a salad, not making
in a hedgerow. Or in France, looking at their food.
Yeah.
And their buildings.
Anywhere that's got some sunshine, really.
But earlier on, you said people respond to your work, and they say that they often feel certain things. They feel happy, or they feel peaceful, or they feel those things. And I know that that's sort of, in a sense, part of the intent. But how do you, or is that part of the intent? And how do you think, why do you think people respond to your work that way?
It wasn't always part of my intent to do that. I think it's a natural overflow of my creative expression, because I have painted some really sad paintings that where I've cried while I'm painting them, and they've been therapy for me. And I can't explain what's happened, but stuff has come out in the process of painting which has been really healing. And then other people have looked at those paintings and known that they're sad, but they don't know what it was about either. But I think, to get deep for a minute, I feel like I have a responsibility or an opportunity to share beauty with the world, and the things that I find fascinating and beautiful in nature or architecture or cultures are things that I can share with other people in my way. And I also feel like my faith is so important and such an integral part of who I am and my expression, that when I'm painting, it's one of those things I often do automatically, like when you're driving the car, or and your brain wanders, and that becomes my praying time and my meditating time and my worshipping time, and that's when I'm having my chat with God. And I feel like my paintings are often an extension of that. And so maybe people experience peace or joy or happiness or whatever it is they experience, because that's how I'm feeling when I'm doing the work, because I'm being the person that God's made me to be, and that is my happy place. So I think it's quite a privilege, really, to be able to express that through my work, and then other people encounter that when they see it.
And you talked a bit about you've named a lot of your things, haven't you? Because I've seen cards and they have like the name of the piece on the back, which is amazing. Do you, when you sort of do that, do you set out going, I'm going to paint a picture that is called joyful? Or is it just that as it's evolving, that's what you feel? Or is that based on feedback from other people? Or how does that work for you? Because I love that you link it like that.
No, it's always, the name always comes from either how I'm feeling or what I'm thinking as I'm creating. So even the stuff that I do that's more that I do in my studio that is a bit more labor intensive, it still comes from how I'm feeling or what I'm thinking. And a lot of what I do is my response to whatever God's speaking to me about at the time, or what's going on in the room in church when I'm painting, or any other place where I'm painting live. So I don't think I've ever started out with a definite idea of what it's going to look like and what it's going to be called before I started. Although sometimes, having said that, I do sometimes work to professional design briefs. So if the brief is create a print that has got autumnal colours in it, then you kind of know what your colour scheme's got to be, but also you've got to name it something that will fit in with that, so that it's obvious when somebody's choosing it that they're going to get what they want, and it's easy for them to find if they're doing a search on the internet or wherever.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good.
Oh, we're so glad that you do it. Like you were saying, you know, it's like a responsibility, but like we're so glad that you do create and that you do produce the art, because there is something so deep. And I agree with you that through your pieces, if you know, if you give yourself to seeing them and it's a bit of time spent there, you can feel, you know, you can feel what was sewed into them, what you sewed into in that moment, and that sort of spiritual conversation and dialogue that's going on, and it somehow remains invested in the art. And I think that's a gift, and we're grateful. I'm grateful that you're doing it, and that you're producing it.
Oh, thank you.
It's so awesome. How, I just want to make sure people can find you. Obviously, right now, as we're recording this, you're in an exhibition there, but
Yeah.
it's going to be maybe on when this goes out. But how can people find you? How can they find your work online or whatever?
Okay, I'm still in the process of building a website, so that doesn't exist just yet. But I have an Instagram page, which is Beth and Ben Art.
Right.
And then I also have a Facebook page, which is Colourpop Textiles by Beth and Ben.
Okay.
And then I do have an Etsy shop, which is Colourpop Textiles by Beth and Ben. And at some point I'll have a website.
Amazing.
But, yeah.
That's great.
All of that side of things, it takes a lot of time and effort and admin. And so it's one step at a time. Got to teach this old dog new tricks, you see. That's part of the problem. Lots of creatives are not good at admin.
Yeah.
Very true.
Ain't that the truth?
We'll pop those links in our description at the bottom. So, but thank you so much. Just before we go, is there anything else that if you were talking to someone that was starting out that felt that those nerves when they, you know, they're faced with that blank piece of paper, that blank canvas, what would you say to them? What would you even say, possibly like, what would you have said to yourself 10 years ago or 15 years ago, to just be a word of encouragement, really, just before we finish?
Okay, well, I have to say it to myself every single time. It's not that I am now suddenly super confident, because I'm not. So every time I start a piece of work, and I would say this to anybody, just start it. Do something, make a mess, and then cover it up. Cover up the bits you don't like with white paint, and then you've still got your canvas to work on.
Yeah.
So I'll often start something, not like bits, cover those bits up and keep the bits I like, and then continue to work on it. And a lot of it is just enjoying the process and experimenting and being childlike and not putting pressure on yourself. I think we've lost so much in our Western world to do with the joy of creating, because we feel like we have to have a final piece that's saleable or that will impress people. And actually, so much of it is about the process and just enjoying ourselves. So, just make a start, make a mess, make a line, you know, do something.
So good.
It's so helpful, and it's so good.
I'm going to just have that on repeat on my phone. Tell me again.
Well, my husband will testify that I am very good at making a mess. Constantly, I have to say, it's because I'm constantly working on my process.
Yeah, that's right. The great excuse.
Love it.
Thanks, Bethan. That was so good, and I think those guys listening and watching will appreciate that. It's been so helpful, actually, and just great to chat. So we're so grateful. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're very welcome. It's my pleasure.
We look forward to more conversations like this, because there are other things that we haven't talked about, which we could have talked about, but another day.
Sure.
So thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much.
And goodbye, everyone. We'll see you again. And stay tuned. Peace.